The script itself, it's two guys who absolutely love this stuff. And yet at the same time, looking at it through a child's eyes, I wanted to make an experience that was very much like me finding Masters for the first time.
It's great that you brought He-Man back on the big screen. Now, the 1987 film has become somewhat a cult favorite, but it wasn't a major success at the time. So what was your approach to making a film that would satisfy long-term He-Man fans, but also a new generation and a broader audience that will go to cinemas?
To me, it goes back to reminding myself why I fell in love with He-Man.
By the power of Grayskull!
For modern audience who doesn't know anything about He-Man, I was that person in 1982 when the franchise was launched. I didn't know anything about He-Man because it didn't exist. But when I discovered it, I loved it. It was so unusual. It had sci-fi, it had fantasy, it had robots, it had laser guns, it had barbarians in furry knickers with huge swords, and it had a crazy, eye-popping, riot of color everywhere, funky designs. It was so weird. It was so odd and silly and fun, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And so for me, it's about kind of making sure we tap into those qualities. That's what made it interesting, that's what made it unusual, that's what made it special. And so it's holding on to that, for those fans of this stuff like me who've loved it their entire lives, that it is, you can see it's recognizably Eternia. These are the characters you knew and loved. And yet at the same time, looking at it through a child's eyes, I wanted to make an experience that was very much like me finding Masters for the first time when I was a child. And I think the film does that.
Yeah, and speaking of what you just said, it looks like Eternia and all of that. So one of your goals was capturing the spirit of the old Filmation cartoon for this film, I guess.
That's right.
The film is also packed with lots of Easter eggs and little subtleties that I really enjoyed. So, well, I can't tell them now, of course. Maybe, but I can say I'm just gonna say Big Jim, which I found interesting. So, who's responsible for all these putting all these things in there?
Well, look, I think we had a lot of incredibly talented folks who worked on the film, and the cast and the crew. So many of them loved He-Man, loved Masters of the Universe, and so they brought that, those decades of love and lore and passion to the material, and so they poured a lot of themselves into it. So, it's a testament to everyone who brought themselves to it. But going back to when I came aboard the project 2.5 years ago, it goes down to your collaborators, and the first person I brought aboard was my friend and creative partner at Leica, my studio, Chris Butler. And Chris and I are contemporaries. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in the States. He grew up in Liverpool. So we had two very different backgrounds, but we both had a mutual love for He-Man. And so, it's critical for me that anytime you adapt something, you need to know and love it. So, Chris and I, we got together, put our heads together, and kind of figured out what story we wanted to tell. And so I think a lot of that is just woven into the script itself. It's two guys who absolutely love this stuff, getting their dream gig. But the Big Jim thing, it's funny because I don't know that your average fan is going to know that, but Big Jim was a toy line from Mattel that preceded Masters. And they basically took the Big Jim tiger and just painted it a different color, and that's how we got Battle Cat.
I love that. There are so many established characters already in the universe, and even I think you took Karg from the '87 film as well. What was the idea behind introducing new characters? Why did you feel you wanted to include a few new characters in the film?
Well, it's a property that's been around for over 40 years. There have been so many different iterations of it. Its mythology is internally completely inconsistent. But, as fans of it, we wanted to honor all those different versions. And so there are subtle nods in so many different ways. And so there are characters that we pulled from the 1987 live action movie. There's a ton of characters, of course, from the original toy line and the cartoon. There's even a random character that we pulled from a newspaper comic strip. And so it was just a lot of these different things. And it was a way for us to honor what came before, while at the same time kind of presenting something new and fresh for a modern audience.
Final thing, the music is absolutely amazing. There's so much new original music, and you have Brian May of Queen in there. So how important was the music for you to make this work?
Music is a huge part of my life. It's always been a huge part of how I approach the movies that I make. So getting the kind of the musical soundscape right for the movie was critical. I collaborated with an amazing composer named Daniel Pemberton, who I'm a huge fan of. He's absolutely extraordinary and an absolutely delightful human being. And in our very first conversation about the project, the one touchstone that I evoked was the 1980s Flash Gordon movie. I loved it as a kid. I absolutely loved it. In the Venn diagram of He-Man and Flash Gordon, those things are almost completely entwined with one another. One of the reasons I loved it was the score, which was famously done by Queen, which was unusual that you had a rock band scoring kind of a fantasy action film. And it just, those songs were etched in my brain forever. Queen actually was kind of a perfect analog for just the vibe of the movie, in that it's big, it's operatic, it's theatrical. There's an extraordinary, craftsmanship brought to that music. And then you've got this amazing singer, you've got these incredible songs, but you've got real sincerity kind of at the core of it. There's emotion behind their work. And so that was, I'd hoped, against hope, that we could have a score that felt like that. So then, a year later, I'm finding myself in Brian May's home recording studio, and I'm watching him wail these incredible guitar solos. And it really was a dream come true. He was such an incredible dude. And he actually knew Masters of the Universe, to my shock, because he actually still had his son Jimmy's toys from the 80s in his attic, and he knew the characters. And so to be there with this guy whose music I loved my entire life, to make a movie about a property that I've loved my entire life, and to hear him play on it, it really was an extraordinary kind of pinch me moment for me.
Fantastic. And the passion comes across. I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for talking here, and thank you very much. I enjoyed this interview.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
All the
Me
best.
too. Cheers.
And I became He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe.